Hello. So today I'm going to talk about a particular study and a newspaper article that was written about that study. I'm sure for many of us, we don't have the time to read all the scientific studies that come out, and we rely on journalism to really provide a synopsis to those studies so that we can learn a bit about them in the future or perhaps just kind of ignore them. So the study that I chose to talk about is one that found that during a particular ancient extinction, or after it rather, birds that survived were really the ones that lived on the ground, not the ones that lived in trees or amongst trees or in the air. This extinction event that I referenced is what we commonly refer to as the KT, or really now referred to as the KPG extinction. This is a dramatic change on Earth, and it had long-lasting consequences for the type of life that survived afterwards. Many scientists theorize that an asteroid impacted Earth and just overnight changed the type of life that existed. For the plant biologist among us, or the botanist, I'm a botany major, trying to become a botanist, so I won't refer to myself as that yet, but for those people interested in plants, the KPG extinction was a really fundamental change in the type of plant life that existed. For many of us, we know that the gymnosperm forests took a hit, and that this marks the rise of angiosperms. And something we'll talk about later is the authors of the study found that this was also an event where ferns were able to proliferate very quickly. And then followed by competition, they died down. But this has really key ramifications for the author's fundamental hypotheses and theories. So if you're interested, the first title up top is the study itself, and the second one is the newspaper article published in the Los Angeles Times. So as I mentioned before, there's a really key part about fern proliferation that has to do with the author's findings. And so this table found in the study shows that when they look at the geological record, they found just a mass amount of fern spores following the extinction event. And what this means is that the forests before the event were completely wiped out, and the ferns that were established no longer had a large source of competition. So they were able to quickly reproduce and all of a sudden kind of take over Earth. So this is also a key thing to say, that the authors are pointing out that the niche space for birds that flew or lived amongst the trees was really eradicated. And therefore the types of birds that could find food and forage were the ones that were on the ground, because obviously ferns don't really get as big as trees do. They can be, but not quite. Here's another table that I think really clearly illustrates that there was a massive change in life. We can see on the right that gymnosperms decreased in their diversity, and we can see a huge spike in ferns and angiosperms. Now, the newspaper article. I thought that this article was a great representation of common popular science writing. And in fact, I think it even goes beyond that. Because what's refreshing about it is they explain some of the theories in ways that really bring to light the significance of the findings, and sometimes explain to you the weight of the theory, and they don't really baby you. They just explain it, and they expect that you will keep up. And it's not that they did it in a confusing way. In fact, they didn't. I just appreciate that they didn't exactly baby me through the article. They were able to explain the fern geological record and the importance of that. They were able to really say that the birds we see flying around today used to walk primarily on land and mainly didn't even fly. As we can see this figure or image over here of a chicken-like bird that's surviving some violent event in the background. Now, some of the criticism I have for the article is I don't think they did a good job on sourcing, say, different opinions, because this is a very contentious event. It's a contentious debate. about the types of life and the ramifications of this extinction event. That's one thing I'd like for them to do. And I think the other thing that they failed to do was really explain to the reader what types of evidence beyond the ferns they used to explain their theory. If you're interested, here's the full title of the study and the authors. It was published in the journal Current Biology. Now, the thing that I mentioned that the authors of the newspaper article failed to mention was that the authors of the study relied upon an ancestral state phylogeny. What they were able to do was use many of the principles like parsimony that we've been learning about and character states to trace back these types of birds that survived the extinction event. And they found that the ones that did were ones that walked on land. They noted that these were like deep nodes in the phylogeny. And so there's a pretty good probability that what they're saying has a good chance of being true. And I think that this figure, which was the figure they used in the study, can really prove that upon closer examination. I hope you found this topic as interesting as me. I hope that you have time to read the newspaper article. I think it's a really a good piece of literature, and I believe that it's a great example in how science can be communicated to everyone in journalism. Thank you.